Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
What could be better than to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with New York's famous Irishman, favorite Irishman, the one and only Malachy McCourt. And Malachy, whom you know, he's a writer. In fact, his book is now out in paperback, Among Swimming. He owned, in fact, I think, as I remember, Malachy's was one of the first single pubs in New York City. Malachy has done so much. He's acted. He ran for governor. You name it. And Malachy McCourt did it. And I met Malachy in the 70s when we were both working for the same radio station. Good morning to you. Good afternoon to you. How are you, my dear friend?
If I was any better, Joan, God would be jealous. So I'm in good form. It is so good to talk to you, the First Lady of Radio. I have always admired you, and that any time you're not on radio, the airs are barren, and so I'm delighted to be a part of your airtime just once more after all these years. We used to have a lot of fun at WMCA, and at that time it was a very rowdy time with Bob Grant and Barry Gray and a bunch of folks there in those days. As they say, they're all gone now.
They're all gone, and it was like a free-for-all. I still remember it was my first job, Malachy, and They hired me. I didn't want to do it. I never heard of it. But my boss, who was then the head of New York Magazine, insisted we do it, and I get the job. I didn't even know what I was doing, and they tell me I share a desk. Who do I share a desk with? They said, oh, don't worry. Very quiet, lovely Malachy McCourt. Who knew? When I opened the drawers to put the notepads, like such a proper little girl, I don't know, Malachy. The bottles were lined up in every desk drawer. And like I said, what is this? And it was all booze and whiskey. And I would be irate. I would dump the drawers. And then, of course, the next day, they'd be full again.
Well, in those days, I had a capacity that was apparently somewhat miracle. But, Joan, I have not had a drink now in 36 years.
No.
I stopped it, and I decided it was ruining my life. And I was married to Diana, and it was she very quietly put up with me, but I decided, hey, this is awful what I'm doing. So I stopped drinking, and I've been very happy ever since.
Right, and no one that I knew, you knew from all the guys, Malachy came to this country. Actually, he was born here, but his family went to Limerick, Ireland, and ultimately he came back when he was a very young man, and he rapidly found his way in the bar scene. And I didn't grow up here, but I had no clue. You were the one who inaugurated me in the ways of the New York bar scene, the drinkers, the life. It was its own community.
Did I do that, Joan?
You did. You did. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I like to eat more than I like to drink. You didn't understand it in the early days.
Yeah, well, it was a mystery to me how anybody could touch food. I mean, that absorbed everything you drank. Anyway, that was all my sort of crazy thinking in those days. I came across a picture of the WMCA softball team. We went to Yankee Stadium, and there we were. And your beloved was on one of our teams, on one of the teams.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I can't remember the year, but that was it. But that was the old Yankee Stadium, and I just remember my name being up on that scoreboard. I have a picture of that.
Wow. Well, we certainly had plenty of adventures, and no one had more adventures than you when you came to New York. And even now, and I had read your book in hardcover, and now Among Swimming is out in paperback, but even reading it again, it must amaze you that you came through all those times. You ended up being in Broadway shows, in movies, and then, of course, running your own bar where all the young ladies from the Barbizon Hotel for Women
That's right.
get inaugurated into the art of drinking.
Yeah, and other things.
Yes.
Well, it was... I always had to sort of conceal things, Joan, because I have no formal education. I left school when I was 13, but I was an omnivorous reader. The Carnegie Library came to Limerick, and I just joined and just practically ate the books. I didn't read them. With Frank and myself, my brother Frank,
of course,
almost ate the books, and I think he was the only high school teacher in New York that didn't have a high school diploma. But he managed to fake his way into teaching into Stuyvesant High School, and I have faked my way all my life with the people have said to me, you're a terrible liar, and I said, no, I'm not. I'm very good at it. I've been doing it all my life.
And you had a lot of brothers, but the only one that I really knew was your brother Frank.
Yes.
Who was a writer and a beloved teacher, I think, at Stuyvesant.
That's right.
And then he wrote Angela's Ashes, which won every major award. But it's interesting, right, that coming from, as you said, it was even beyond poverty in Limerick, how there was so much love for words and for language in that family.
Well, there were three of us. Three died in childhood. My sister, the only girl of seven children, and she died. That's what caused our going to Ireland. My mother had a breakdown. Then we go to Ireland, and there are twin boys, Eugene and Oliver, and they died over there. So then four of us grew to adulthood, but they're all dead now, and I'm the last one. And I just hit 90 there a few months back, and I'm absolutely astonished at how that happened. But any day above ground, Joan, is a good one, and we're still at it.
That's for sure. Now, with your children, and you married very young, I mean, your first marriage, and that produced two children. Are any of the children writers or artists or
Well, my daughter Siobhan is part of the Irish Writers, which I founded, Irish Writers and Artists. And to join that, you don't have to be Irish, or you don't have to be a writer. I mean, you do. You need to be a writer, yeah. But being Irish is not necessary. And that's all. Been if you whatever artists we have, singer, dancer, or any kind of an artist, join up with us, and you're and people are most welcome. And I still do a show on WBAI on Sundays, and that is that's totally free, as you know. They don't pay any money, but I love talking. I have a partner and that, John McDonough, and we have fun with that. We still outrage people, and people get mad at us and all. You know how it is, John, with people that take offense at anything.
Right, that's for sure. And we certainly came of age during that time when we were broadcasting with one of the original Yeller Screamers.
Yes.
Our pal Bob Grant in those days.
Oh,
and
my God,
we all took it in stride, remember? All that.
Yeah. And Barry Gray.
Barry Gray.
And then Barry Farber came aboard subsequently. And John Sterling was doing all the sports stuff, and then he became a big deal at Yankee with the Yankees, and the Yankee announcer as well. So, and Steve Powers, and oh my God!
No, our crew, everyone there, and we were all like blinking in the light. Everyone there ended up doing great. And your stories were unbelievable. I mean, you were a longshoreman. You spent time everywhere, including a little friendly time in jail. And you didn't miss a beat. And don't you marvel even now when you write your books and you lecture and you do your shows, how life kept coming, and yet the bad stuff you ended up stepping over and going on to the next, and you became a real New York character and celebrity.
That's it's very hard for me to comprehend that, Joan. That I could call Joan Hamburg my friend is an astonishing achievement. That a celebrity like you would even know my name, and I'm still astounded at that. And and I'm I'm delighted. And of course, I drop your name all over the place as well.
Oh, Malachy, you're such a character. You're such a character. I know. And Malachy McCourt tried so hard to teach me to drink instead of throwing out his old whiskey bottles, but it never. That wasn't your best effort. I never could do that. And I remember when you wanted to be governor of New York City and you ran under the umbrella of the Green Party.
I did. And that was of course, a mistake. Not a mistake. I mean, it was great. That was great fun. I got to travel all over the state. It just was so. It was an expensive misadventure, but anyway, I went around the state and talked to people, and everybody said. But I got about 46,000 votes, which was. Can you imagine 46,000 strangers saying that you were fit to be governor?
Yeah, I love that.
And that was, I'd say, I'll accept that. And
that was exciting. And no one has or had more stories than Malachy. And I still remember when you went to Fire Island. Everyone told you that's where you've got to be. That's where the action is. And you would absolutely corrupt everyone all night long. And then you sold Bibles to make a buck during the day. Only you.
Well, that was, can you imagine, Joan, here am I walking up and down the beach in a bathing suit, and I have a drink in one hand and a Bible in the other. And it was, it didn't work too well. So the Bible venture did not, it was what I remember about that was they had a Catholic Bible with the Douay version, and there was a Protestant Bible, the King James. And then there was something for our Jewish people. There was a Jewish story in America, nothing biblical. going up and down the beach and trying to sell Bibles and not. So I gave it up, went back to drinking, and that was.
And that lasted for a while.
That lasted. There was a couple of summers there. But fun.
Oh my gosh!
Fun,
and I
fun.
remember Malachy because I hadn't thought about it, but when I reread Among Swimming, you describe how you were at, I think it was an event or a sport thing, when you met Elizabeth and Prince Philip.
Oh, yeah, Queen. She was the Queen at the time.
She was the Queen, and they were at this particular event. I think it was a reception for what? For football, for soccer, for something?
Well, she was visiting New York, and I was a member of the New York Rugby Club, and there were a lot of Brits on the club, and because of that, the British consulate issued us a number of passes. And the president of our club was a very proper Oxonian chap, you say. I said, then your chaps would like to come and meet the Queen. So, I don't know, for some reason I put up my hand. I was trying to impress a young woman at the time, Anita Whitney. So anyway, I got a couple of tickets, and I arrived at the Armory at 66th Street, and there was thousands of people there, and it was a roasting hot night. Everybody was sweating profusely, and Anita suddenly became faint, and she said, I have to get out of here. So I ushered her over to a side door where a guy that I knew, a cop, who happened to be on duty, and I said, she's not away. He said, come in here. So he put me in a room, and the next door, and there was a bar there, so I got a couple of large cognacs and gave Anita one and took one myself. Then the next thing, the door opened, and in walks the Queen with Governor Rockefeller, and behind them there was Mayor Wagner and Prince Philip and so forth. So anyway, a guy, a major general or something, came over to me and he said, would you take your place in line for the reception? And I didn't know what he was talking about, but anyway, he put us in a line, and we stood there, and then the Queen and Philip came down. He took my name, Malachy McCourt, and me, Mr. Malachy McCourt and Miss Anita Whitney. And the Queen says, how do you do? How do you do? And we shook hands. And you're not supposed to extend your hand until she does. That was the stuff. So anyway, she did that. And so that, after the that presentation finished, Philip comes over to me, and he says, I say, old chap, he said, you're Irish, aren't you? And I said, oh, yes, I am indeed. He said, oh. He said, there was somewhat of a reception this morning when we got off the yacht. He said, were you? Well, I said I couldn't get there. I was working on the docks. so he said, oh, well, that was good enough, he said. So then, and he said, what do you do in New York? I said, well, I am a longshoreman. And he said, oh, very good, and so forth. Well, listen, old boy, he said, if you're ever in London, he said, look me up, will you? I said, sure. Well, indeed, old boy. So we shook hands, and that was it.
But
and
your date couldn't believe it, right? Yeah. That you were so friendly with Prince.
There were princes and queens and all kinds of things. You know, Joan, life is silly. And I'm 90 now, and I'm always thinking how silly life has been, and how what gets us through is you have to have a laugh. It is absolutely essential to have the laugh. That's what keeps us going. When I was asked to write a book, and my book, Wonk Swimming, became a bestseller, and it's now it now can be had at the soft cover, and which published by a friend now, republished actually, and it is. And I tell people, monk swimming comes from a mishearing of the Hail Mary, which Catholics all know. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou amongst women. And I thought when I was a kid it said a monk swimming. And that's why I called the book A Monk Swimming. And so that's why. It's called Mondegreen. There was a poet named, oh God, I can't think of her name, but she was the one, she remembered another Scottish poem. They slew the Earl of Moray and laid him on the green. So she thought it said Lady Mondegreen. and so she took part of that word, that phrase out, Lady Mondegreen, and made it Mondegreen. So now, Mondegreen is what you mishear. That's the description of it, because it's a new word in the English language. And I love to hear, I love little pieces of information like that. So right. Mondegreen is when you mean, lead us not into Penn Station. You know, that is another one. I led the pigeons to the flag. That's another Mondegreen. And so people have their own, Mondegreens. So there they are.
There. And Malachy, are you going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Is that a big thing in your life?
Well, St. Patrick was an Englishman. He was captured when he was a kid, and he was brought to Ireland by an Irish pirate. And he was sold, and he became a shepherd on the hills of Antrim. And his name is not Patrick. I mean, the real name is Maewyn Succat. Is his family name.
Is that true?
That's true, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was sold as a slave, and he spent his time in the north of Ireland. And then he escaped and went to France and became a priest, went to Rome and became a bishop. And the Pope Celestine said to him, what would you like to do now? And he said, I'd like to go back to Ireland. So he went back to Ireland, and he took this perfectly happy pagan people, and he made them all Catholics, and ruined the great country with this. But anyway, and then he took the name Patrick from the Latin, which is patricius, which means nobleman in the Latin. He took it from the Latin. That's how Patrick came about. But his real name was Maewyn Succat. Isn't that a strange name?
Yeah, and what a story.
And his parents were Romans, you see, and they were occupying Britain. And nobody knows what part of... They might have lived in Wales. Nobody knows exactly where. Niall, the man that captured him was a guy, a pirate, named Niall of the Nine Hostages, and he sold him at 16. And he escaped when he was 20, and that's when he went back to Ireland. When he went to Rome and became a bishop and so forth.
Wow, what a story!
Years. Yeah,
he probably did not eat corned beef and cabbage either.
And we didn't in Ireland. Actually, the main dish there was ham and cabbage. Big lumps of ham. Corned beef and cabbage is a New England dish. Yeah. So it's not traditional there. It was New England.
No, we used to broadcast from there on St. Patrick's Day, and when we would say, where's the corned beef and cabbage, they looked at us as if we were from Mars. We don't eat that.
No, indeed.
Who eats that?
Indeed. Americans only, yeah.
Only us.
They could afford to wait for it.
I know. Malachy, I love talking to you. I'm so happy everything's going great in your life. Right there, front and forward as always. I still remember how exciting it was. I knew someone who had a bar with his name on it. That was a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually, it was the first singles bar, I don't know, in New York certainly, but I don't know if it's the first one in America. That was 1958. Then I got another one. There was Malachy's the second. And then I got another one called Himself. And then I got another one called The Bells of Hell. That was, which became my theme song for the show. The bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me. Oh, death, where is thy sting-a-ling-a-ling, or grave thy victory? If you meet the undertaker, or the young man from the brew, have a pint with what's left over. Now I'll say goodbye to you.
Bravo, the one and only Malachy McCourt. His life in paperback now, A Monk Swimming, a bestseller.
With the help of God and 4 policemen.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and yours.
Indeed, Joan, thank you so much. It is, I can't tell you, a great pleasure is to resume the friendship. It's been many a years since we met in the 70s. Right. And
that's right, late 70s.
Let's not stop meeting.
No, we've had a lot of adventures. All the best to you, Malachy. Enjoy the day, and I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC. More ahead.